You know what nobody talks about when it comes to single mothers and dating? It's not what you think. Everyone wants to make this about morality or character or some outdated notion of honor. But that's not what's actually happening. What's happening is something much more primal, much more calculated, and much more brutal than anyone wants to admit. It's about a cost-benefit analysis that every man runs subconsciously within the first 5 minutes of meeting a single mother, and the numbers almost never add up in her favor. Let me be clear about something right now. This isn't about whether single mothers are good people. Many of them are incredible women who've been dealt difficult hands. This isn't about their worth as human beings or their capacity to love. This is about market dynamics, psychological programming, and the mathematics of male investment. And when you understand these forces, you'll understand why the vast majority of quality men swipe left the moment they see mum to two amazing kids in a dating profile. Here's what's happening in a man's brain, whether he realizes it or not, when he considers dating a single mother. He's running an equation. On one side, he's calculating what he has to offer, his time, his money, his attention. On the other side, he's calculating what he gets in return. And with single mothers, that equation is brutally lopsided from the start. Think about this for a second. When a man dates a woman without children, 100% of his investment goes toward building something with her. Every dinner, every vacation, every moment of attention is about them creating a future together. But with a single mother, he's immediately in a position where he's expected to invest resources into another man's children. Children who will never be fully his. Children who come with an ex who will be in the picture forever. Children who will always be her first priority, which means he'll always be second, third, or fourth. I remember sitting across from a guy, let's call him Marcus, successful software engineer, 34 years old, never married. He'd been dating a single mother for about 4 months. He came to me because he couldn't figure out why he felt so resentful. On paper, she was great, beautiful, kind, intelligent. But every time they made plans, something with her kids would come up. Every time he wanted spontaneity, she needed a babysitter. Every time he imagined their future, he saw himself raising another man's children, while that man paid minimal child support and showed up to play Disney dad every other weekend. I feel like I'm auditioning to be a stepdad to kids who already have a father, Marcus told me. And the worst part is I'm supposed to pretend like this is normal, like I should be grateful for the opportunity. That's the reality nobody wants to say out loud. Let's talk about what actually happens in relationships with single mothers. And I'm going to be specific because specificity is where truth lives. From day one, a man dating a single mother knows he will never be her first priority, ever. Her kids come first, always, and every man understands this on an intellectual level. He can say all the right things about respecting her role as a mother, but emotionally, psychologically, he's hardwired to want to be chosen first by his partner. This creates a psychological tension that never resolves. He's expected to pour boyfriend-level commitment and resources into a situation where he gets part-time girlfriend attention. She's exhausted from work and parenting. Date nights get cancelled because the kid is sick. Romantic weekends are impossible without complex logistics. Spontaneous anything doesn't exist. And slowly he realizes he's living the responsibilities of family life without any of the benefits or appreciation. Here's what it looks like in practice. She texts him that her babysitter cancelled, so their date is off. Again, he understands. He has to understand. But understanding doesn't change the fact that he just spent an hour getting ready, was looking forward to seeing her, and now he's sitting home alone on a Friday night. This happens once, twice, 5 times. Each time he tells himself it's fine, but each time, a little piece of his enthusiasm dies. Now let's address the elephant that's always in the room, on the phone, at the pickup, at the school events, in the group chat. The ex-husband or baby daddy. This man will be a permanent fixture in any relationship she has, forever. There is no escape from this reality. Every quality man understands that dating a single mother means you're entering into an eternal triangle. You're not building a relationship with her. You're joining a pre-existing system where you're the outsider. The father of her children, no matter how absent or problematic, will always have access to her. They'll communicate regularly. They'll make decisions together. They'll share history that you'll never be part of. And in moments of crisis, she'll call him before she calls you, because he's the father of her children, and you're just the boyfriend. I had a client, we'll call him James, who dated a single mother for 2 years. 2 years of playing second fiddle to her ex's schedule, her ex's opinions, her ex's problems. The breaking point came when her ex called at midnight because he got a DUI and needed someone to get him from jail, and she went. She left James's bed at midnight to go bail out her ex-husband because the kids need their father. James sat there in the dark and had a moment of clarity. He realized he'd spent 2 years investing in a woman who would always prioritize her connection to another man over him. Not because she was a bad person, but because that's the reality of the situation. The ex isn't an ex when there are kids involved. He's a permanent co-parent, and you're the optional add-on. Everyone has baggage. That's just being human. But single mothers come with baggage that has baggage. It's not just her emotional wounds from the previous relationship. It's an entire ecosystem of complications that affect every single aspect of a relationship. There's the financial baggage, child support payments that limit her income, extra expenses that always seem to appear, kids who need braces, sports equipment, school supplies, college funds, and there's often an unspoken expectation that a man who dates her should help with these costs, even though they're not his responsibility. There's the logistical baggage. Her schedule isn't her own. It's dictated by custody agreements, school calendars, after-school activities, and the whims of her co-parent. Want to take a spontaneous weekend trip? Not without planning 6 weeks in advance and negotiating with the ex. Want her to spend the night at your place, only on nights when she doesn't have the kids, which is exactly when she most wants to see them. There's the emotional baggage. She's been through a divorce or a breakup with someone she had children with. That level of entanglement leaves scars that don't heal easily. She might have trust issues. She might be hyper-vigilant about red flags. She might compare you to her ex constantly, either favorably or unfavorably, but you're always being measured against him. And here's the baggage nobody talks about. The baggage of her judgment. She made the decision to have children with someone who's no longer in her life as a partner. Whether that was her choice or circumstances beyond her control, it raises questions. What was her judgment like? What red flags did she miss? And will she miss them with you too? Let's talk about something that makes people uncomfortable, but is absolutely central to why men avoid single mothers. Biology. Men are biologically programmed to want to pass on their own genes. This isn't controversial, it's evolutionary psychology 101. And when a man dates a single mother, especially one who doesn't want more children or is past her prime childbearing years, he's being asked to invest his resources in children who don't carry his DNA. This creates a profound psychological conflict. He might genuinely care about her kids. He might even grow to love them. But there's a primal part of his brain that knows these aren't his offspring, that his resources, his time, his guidance is going toward perpetuating another man's genetic line, not his own. And for men who want biological children of their own, dating a single mother with multiple kids often means waiting, compromising, or giving up on that dream entirely. I remember a guy, let's call him Robert, 38 years old, who came to me devastated. He'd spent 4 years with a single mother of 3. He kept waiting for the right time for them to have a child together. But there was never a right time. She was stretched too thin with the 3 she had. Money was always tight. Her energy was depleted, and slowly he watched his window for fatherhood close while he played stepdad to another man's kids. I wake up at 42 years old, he told me, and I realize I've spent my prime years raising kids that aren't mine, and now I might never have my own. The bitterness in his voice was crushing, but that's the reality that men face when they date single mothers. They often have to choose between her and their own biological imperative. Here's the brutal economics of dating that nobody wants to acknowledge. Men, especially quality men with options, are doing a cost-benefit analysis, and when they compare dating a single mother to dating a woman without kids, the single mother loses on almost every metric. A woman without kids offers 100% availability, no ex-partner complications, the possibility of creating a family together from scratch, flexibility in lifestyle and decisions. A single mother offers partial availability, permanent ex-partner involvement, everything planned in advance, shared attention with kids, and you'll always be second priority. From a pure marketplace perspective, why would a quality man choose the second option when the first is available? The only reason would be if the single mother brought significantly more value to offset these disadvantages. And the hard truth is, most don't, because the exact life choices that led to single motherhood often indicate judgment issues that quality men want to avoid. Let's talk about what happens if a man actually commits to a single mother. He enters what I call the step-parent trap, where he has all the responsibilities of a parent with none of the authority or respect. He's expected to help raise the kids, contribute financially, be present at their events, provide guidance and discipline, but he's not their father. He has no legal rights. If the relationship ends, he loses access to kids he may have bonded with. The biological father can undermine his authority. The mother can override his decisions. The kids can throw "you're not my dad" in his face whenever he tries to provide structure. I had a client, we'll call him David, who lived this nightmare. He spent 6 years with a single mother, helped raise her 2 boys from ages 8 and 10 to 14 and 16. He coached their sports teams. He helped with homework. He paid for their phones, their clothes, their activities. He treated them like his own sons. Then she cheated on him with her ex-husband. They separated, and overnight he lost everything. The boys, who he'd invested years in, stopped responding to his texts. She blocked him from their lives completely. He had no legal rights, no recourse, no way to see these kids he'd helped raise, and she moved on like he never existed, while he grieved the loss of not just a relationship but the children he'd bonded with. "I lost my family," he told me, tears streaming down his face. "But they were never really my family, were they? I was just the guy who paid the bills until she went back to their real father." That's the step-parent trap. All the emotional investment with none of the security. Here's something that eats at men who date single mothers. Even if they never articulate it, there's a respect deficit baked into the relationship from the start. And it comes from multiple directions. Her kids might not respect him. He's not their father. He's the guy dating their mum. And kids, especially teenagers, can be brutal in their dismissiveness. They ignore his input. They complain about his presence. They wait for him to leave so they can have their mum to themselves. Her ex might not respect him. Why would he? This new guy is just temporary. The ex knows he has permanent leverage through the kids. He knows she'll always pick up his calls, always accommodate his schedule, always prioritize co-parenting over her romantic relationship. The ex doesn't see the new boyfriend as a threat. He sees him as a babysitter and a wallet. Her family might not respect him. They see him as the rebound guy. They compare him to her ex, who fathered their grandchildren and will always be family. They're polite, but he's never fully integrated. He's tolerated, not embraced. And sometimes he senses she doesn't fully respect him either. Because if she did, would she constantly prioritize everyone else over him? Would she expect him to accept terms that no self-respecting man should accept? Would she be surprised when he eventually walks away? Let's break down the actual investment a man makes when dating a single mother versus what he receives in return. This isn't romantic, but relationships are partnerships, and partnerships need balance. He invests financial resources toward her household, time with kids that aren't his biological children, emotional energy dealing with ex-drama, flexibility and patience with constant complications. His own goals and dreams often get delayed or abandoned, prime dating years that could be spent finding a better match, and the possibility of having his own biological family. He receives partial attention when kids aren't around, a relationship filled with logistical challenges, a partner who's often exhausted and stressed, no guarantee of stability or permanence, the knowledge that he'll never be her first priority, and a ready-made family that can be taken away at any moment. The math doesn't math, and every quality man runs this calculation, even if unconsciously, and most of them decide it's a losing proposition. Here's a pattern I've seen repeatedly in my practice. A man meets a single mother. She's attractive, accomplished, mature. He thinks maybe this is different. Maybe he's mature enough to handle it. Maybe love conquers all. So he tries. He really tries. He bonds with the kids. He accommodates the schedule. He bites his tongue when the ex acts like an idiot. He puts his own needs second, third, fourth. He tells himself this is what real men do. But 6 months in, a year in, 2 years in, he starts to feel it. The resentment, the frustration, the realization that he's playing a rigged game. He looks at his friends who are with women without kids, and he sees freedom. He sees prioritization. He sees relationships where both people are each other's first choice. And then comes the moment that breaks him. Maybe it's another cancelled date. Maybe it's watching her ex disrespect him again. Maybe it's her choosing her kid's soccer game over his important work event. Maybe it's just waking up one day and realizing he's been auditioning for a role in someone else's life story instead of writing his own. He leaves, and she's shocked. She tells her friends he couldn't handle a real woman with responsibilities. She posts on social media about men who can't step up. She tells her kids that he just couldn't love them enough. But that's not what happened. What happened is he finally respected himself enough to stop accepting a deal where he gives 100% and gets 30% back. And she blames him for refusing to be grateful for the scraps. Let's be honest about what men are actually thinking. A quality man in his 30s or 40s has options. He might not have unlimited options, but he has options. And when he's on a dating app or meeting women in real life, he's making comparisons. There's the 28-year-old without kids who's excited about life and has time for adventure. There's the 32-year-old professional who's career-focused and low maintenance. There's the 35-year-old who's never been married and wants to build something from scratch with the right person. And then there's the single mother. She's 36, has 2 kids, shares custody with an ex who's in the picture permanently, has a schedule that's locked down 6 months in advance, is financially stressed, emotionally exhausted, and needs a man who'll step up and help raise kids that aren't his. Which option would you choose? The single mother needs an extraordinary man to choose extraordinary circumstances, but she's often not offering extraordinary value to justify that choice. She's offering a below-average deal and expecting above-average men to take it. The math doesn't work. Here's what actually happens in most relationships between quality men and single mothers. It starts with optimism. He thinks he's mature enough, evolved enough, secure enough to handle it. She thinks she's found one of the rare good ones who can see past her circumstances. But slowly the resentment builds. For him it's every cancelled plan, every moment of feeling second best, every interaction with her ex, every dollar spent on kids that aren't his. For her it's feeling like he'll never fully understand, like he judges her for her past, like he's not as committed as she needs him to be. The resentment creates distance. The distance creates communication problems. The communication problems create more resentment. And round it goes until someone breaks. I've seen this cycle dozens of times. A man comes in angry, feeling used. A woman comes in frustrated, feeling unsupported. Neither is wrong. They're just in an impossible situation trying to make work something that's fundamentally imbalanced. You want to know the real reason men don't date single mothers? It's not about being shallow or selfish or afraid of commitment. It's because men are finally learning to value themselves enough to say no to bad deals. For generations, men were told they had to be providers, protectors, fixers. They had to step up, be the hero, save the day. And many men sacrificed their own happiness trying to live up to that standard. They married single mothers, raised kids that weren't theirs, accepted being second priority, and swallowed their resentment. But something's changed. Men are waking up to the reality that self-sacrifice without reciprocity isn't noble, it's just foolish. They're realizing that choosing themselves isn't selfish, it's self-respect. They're understanding that they don't have to settle for someone else's leftovers and pretend it's a feast. Single mothers often frame this as men being immature or afraid of real responsibility. But that's projection. What they're actually afraid of is being taken advantage of. And that's not fear, that's wisdom. Here's what's happening in the dating market right now. Single mothers are discovering that the pool of quality men willing to date them is much smaller than they anticipated, and they're responding with frustration, anger, and blame. They blame men for being shallow. They blame society for stigmatizing single mothers. They blame dating apps for giving men too many options. They blame everyone except the person who made the choice to have children with someone they're no longer with. But the market doesn't care about blame or fairness or what anyone deserves. The market cares about supply and demand, and the demand for single mothers from quality men is low, not because there's something wrong with them as people, but because the value proposition doesn't make sense. A man can date a woman without kids and potentially build a family together, or he can date a single mother and inherit someone else's family while giving up the possibility of his own. When you frame it that way, the choice becomes obvious. So what's the actual answer to why men don't date single mothers? It's this. Because men are finally doing the same cost-benefit analysis that women have been doing forever. They're asking themselves, what's in this for me? And the honest answer is, not much. Not enough to justify the complications, not enough to offset the sacrifices, not enough to make it worth giving up their freedom, their resources, and potentially their own biological children. Single mothers offer a relationship where the man is expected to accept permanent second place, invest in another man's children, deal with ex-drama forever, navigate complex logistics constantly, delay or abandon his own dreams, give more than he'll ever receive, and in return he gets a partner when it's convenient, a role with responsibility but no authority, the label of stepdad instead of dad, and a relationship that can end and take away everything he invested. That's not a relationship. That's a hostage situation with better marketing. The truth is, most men would rather stay single than accept those terms. They'd rather be alone than be someone's safety net, backup plan, or financial solution. They'd rather wait for someone who chooses them first than settle for someone who needs them to complete her pre-existing family. And that's not men failing to step up. That's men finally learning to step back from bad deals. The difference looks the same from the outside, but the motivation is completely different. What happens to single mothers in the dating market? They get exactly what the market dictates. Some find men desperate enough or damaged enough to accept the terms. Some find genuinely good men who are willing to be saints. Some give up on dating and focus on their kids. But most experience the frustration of having far fewer options than they expected. They watch men their age date younger women without kids. They watch their friends in simple relationships wondering why theirs has to be so complicated. They watch years pass while they wait for someone who'll accept the deal they're offering. And slowly, some of them realize the truth. They made choices that had consequences. And one of those consequences is that quality men view them as high-risk, low-reward investments. Not because they're bad people, but because the math doesn't work. That's why men don't date single mothers, not because men are shallow or afraid or immature, but because men are finally asking themselves the same question women have been asking forever: can I do better? And when it comes to single mothers, the honest answer is usually yes.